Why Your Kids' Teachers Are So Stressed Out by Mr. B. And folks, as I narrate through this, feel free to pause if you want to read any of the pictures. All right, here we go. You're a teacher. Could be high school, middle school, let's say elementary school. At least you used to think of yourself as a teacher. Really, you're more like a babysitter. All day long, you try to deal with the same behavior issues from the same one or two students. And lately, it's gotten out of control. You spend 95% of your time and energy trying to calm down these two students, which leaves no time to teach, let alone help the entire rest of the class. As a teacher, you know you can handle basic issues like blurting, classroom drama, playground roughhousing, but you're dealing with temper tantrums and meltdowns all day long. Tantrums can last hours. Punching, kicking, screaming, biting, throwing things, endless crying when they don't get their way, pathological lying, especially when explaining things to parents. This continues all day. But this isn't just your class. All over the U.S., there are students that desperately need interventions, counseling, therapy, and real options for possible alternative education settings. The documentation process for getting extra help can take years and is so long and grueling that many teachers are reluctant to start it. If the student moves, the process might start over. And if you finally get some interventions, they might be worthless, as the students' behaviors have now escalated so much that it's essentially a Band-Aid on an artery wound. Your superintendent has followed other districts by eliminating any consequences. What would have gotten a student expelled 10 years ago won't even get a suspension now. The district admin want high test scores, no suspensions, no office referrals, no matter the cost. Like most teachers, you know suspensions, expulsions, and endless trips to the office don't change behavior, but you literally can't do your job while these behaviors happen all day. You can't teach, kids don't learn. The district reasons that every second a student is out of the class, they're not learning. But nobody is learning because all your time goes to two students. Same is true for K-12 classes all over. These daily behavior issues from a few students take up all staff members' time. The principal, assistant principal, EAs or paraprofessionals, equity specialists, librarian, behavior coach, school social worker, even the front secretary, all can be called to deal with the same few students, often several times a day or all day long. District admin are forcing schools to essentially fudge office referrals and suspension numbers. Because behavior issues are kept in the class or hallway, admin can show data that proves their strategies are working. It's all a lie. Behaviors skyrocket, even with students who weren't an issue before. It's understandable, as you have a Lord of the Flies scenario where the teacher is so occupied that the rest of the class is pretty much on its own. Though there are plenty of classes in your school or district that run just fine, it's all just become a roll of the dice. The easiest class can self-destruct with the addition of one student with major behavior issues. You and your fellow teachers feel like you have no control, and realistically, you don't. You have no say in district policies. More troubling is that students eventually learn that there are no repercussions for anything they do. The vast majority of students listen, but even their patience is almost gone. Over the years, teachers watch as a few students' behaviors get worse and worse. Temper tantrums turn to violence and threats against students and staff, but still no office referrals or suspensions. The toll this has taken on staff and students is unbelievable. Kids don't want to go to school, and neither do teachers. We often hear about the school-to-prison pipeline. But when school is unsafe and kids can't learn, can we talk about the prison-to-prison pipeline? When school feels like a prison, what's the difference? Schools may feel like a prison, but they also operate as test score factories. Those who control what's on standardized tests have control of what's taught in the curriculum. All or any learning is second to the almighty test score data. If test scores in your class are up, you're a good teacher. If not, you're failing the kids. No excuses. District policy cannot be questioned. But keep in mind, the district loves you and is here to help you figure out why you're failing the kids. Don't fight the district. Resistance is futile. To help address your failures, the district will require double the weekly test prepping data to make sure your class is on target for the next standardized tests. Teachers with low test scores now have even less time to teach new or any material at all. They can hardly finish this week's testing, let alone have time to teach. With almost no time to teach, all creativity and fun are stripped from lesson plans as you focus on the exact skills needed for the test. Obviously, the drill and kill teaching creates even more behavior issues, and the district admin will, without the slightest sense of hypocrisy, call you out for not having lesson plans that are creative, fun, and engaging. You can't make this stuff up. If a teacher somehow manages to really raise test scores, then that just proves that the superintendent's plan is working. If not, it just proves that the teachers need training to address their prejudice beliefs and their commitment to educating all. Heads they win, tails everyone loses. The superintendent has a grand vision for the district. Rest assured, all staff members will have an equal voice and opportunity to agree with why the superintendent's plan will work. For urban districts especially, this grand vision often only lasts 2 to 3 years before the superintendent runs to the wealthy suburban districts with a polished resume that maybe shows test scores in former district kinda up, but suspension rates definitely down. The school board quickly hires a new cookie-cutter superintendent with another fail-proof vision to raise test scores and lower suspension rates. Here's a question: how do you lower suspensions below 0? Suburban superintendents can also polish resumes with 2 to 3 years of experience in an urban district before they move to a state-level position or a high-paying education company. The white savior complex of rescuing urban schools from their teachers sits well with the school board. Free market corporate efficiency will bring the success of the suburbs to our schools. Until it inevitably doesn't work, the district is worse off, endless teachers have quit, and the super has already left. Interestingly, the same things are happening at private schools and charter schools, which need to prove their test score performance to draw in more students. These alternatives to public schools can be far bigger test factories with even less accountability because they need funding from higher student numbers, but also can't afford to lose any students. Thus, there might be even less accountability for behavior issues. The more teachers you talk to, the more you realize that this is happening all over. Teacher bashing, test score shaming, no accountability or options for behaviors, and no accountability for district admin and their cronies and puppets below them. Though less obvious in the suburbs, these issues are getting worse and expanding everywhere. In the news, parents are presented an image of lazy union teachers who can never be fired, lounging in the summer sun. They react by hiring/voting in school board members who in turn hire a new superintendent who will whip the teachers into shape with higher test scores and lower, no suspensions or office referrals. Yet interestingly, most parents and guardians like their kid's teacher and like their kid's school, but there's something about the teachers as a whole that can't be trusted. Some parents are aware and concerned about the amount of testing, yet there's still an unchallenged faith in the scores themselves. Parents are taught that good schools have high test scores and thus good teachers. Bad schools are easily blamed on the teachers, or, especially with urban schools, blamed on the students. District admin, their vision, and the school board are presented as liberators who hold the teachers in check. But what if the parents were told about what was happening in their kids' school? What if these elephants in the room that we only discuss in hushed voices in the teacher's lounge, what if we got the message out to parents about how bad it's gotten? Unfortunately, the truth is buried in a grave of fear, lies, mistreatment, trauma, and finally, a surrender. Teachers are quitting at alarming rates. There's no need to fire us over test scores. The average teacher lasts about 4 years, and what is supposed to be a career you retire in after 30 years. Consider how many quit the first year. Student teaching dropouts aren't even counted. If they were, who knows how low the average would drop. As veteran teachers quit out of disgust and stress, they take with them the story and history of the district. Parents and newly hired teachers forget that there was a time when schools weren't test factories. It's become so widespread that it's become the norm. Young and new teachers have often known nothing but this current system in their own K-12 experience. Obsessive test prepping and room clearings from extreme behaviors were a daily occurrence in these new teachers' own education. Many new teachers don't even know there's a problem until they get their first job. Maybe they've heard from a veteran teacher about a time before this chaos, but a so-called veteran teacher might be anyone who's been there more than 2 to 3 years. The history is lost and the present is the norm. So year after year, teachers watch as the same issues get worse and worse. Test score demands keep going up. Behavior issues keep getting worse. There's no accountability or help, and teachers are blamed for everything. And so we teachers, staff ask ourselves, why am I here? Why do this job? Why be a teacher if I can't teach? All it takes is one student with extreme behaviors to turn my job into a babysitter all year. What's the point? The more questions you ask, the more you realize you don't have an answer for continuing this job. You're passionate about teaching, but you never get to teach. The toll that the job is taking on your health is affecting everyone around you. It affects parenting, relationships, friends, and even your ability to sleep, relax, and not think about school. The district offers some teacher yoga classes and de-stressing seminars, but you're not stressed because you haven't done enough downward dog. It's the district that is causing the stress. Finally, after much talks with friends and family, you realize you need to quit the teaching profession. Another teacher bites the dust, only to be replaced by a new teacher. That won't last much longer than you. Sure enough, you find yourself months later with a new job, pumping out spreadsheets in a cubicle in corporate America. It's not your dream job, but the pay and hours are better, nobody's throwing a chair at you, and sure enough, and this is actually true, you work with many ex-teachers, all with the same stories of mistreatment that you went through. Interestingly, you find that ex-teachers are in high demand all over for their work ethic, organizational skills, and oddly, their skills with data from all those years of endlessly interpreting test score data. A terrible irony that's not lost on fellow ex-teachers. But at night, you lie awake in bed, wondering, what went wrong? This isn't how I pictured my life. And though you're still passionate about the teaching profession, like so many former teachers, you wouldn't dare come back. But you still wonder, what could I have done different? You honestly can't think of anything, but the thought still haunts you. You inevitably ask, was the district right? Am I not meant to be a teacher? Did I fail my students? Is this all my fault? For current and former teachers all over, the answer is no. It is not your fault. You were placed in an environment that made it impossible to do your job. For too long, our teacher stories and struggles have remained in the teacher's lounge, hidden from parents. My hope is this video will expose what has been done to us and how it affects your own kids. My name is Mr. B, current and continuing kindergarten teacher, and I'd like to welcome you to my video. First off, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch this. I know it's long, but I tried to make it as entertaining as I could, while still hard-hitting. A little about the format. You've probably noticed the contrast between the gloom and doom narrating and the funny pictures and pop culture references. That's on purpose. I need parents to understand the depth of the problems we're facing, but I don't want you to cry after every chapter. The subject matter of mistreatment and abuse is not fun, but like a rose growing out of concrete, I think the pictures will lighten the mood and make it an easy watch. Now, a good question is, Mr. B, why make this? Truth be told, with how bad things have gotten, I never felt like I had a choice, but my reasons actually relate to my teacher story. So I went back to school later in life to become a teacher. While taking college classes at night, during the day, I was a substitute teacher from multiple districts, rural, urban, suburban. I taught every grade, took every position available. And what was interesting was wherever I went, teachers were dealing with the same struggles. The kindergarten teachers had the same issues as the high school teachers. Teacher bashing, test score shaming, no accountability for extreme behaviors, no options for dealing with behaviors, and time again, there was a district administration that just didn't care about what teachers were dealing with. Since teaching full-time, I have watched things get worse and worse over the last 10 years. Veteran teachers all over can confirm that this is especially true when it comes to behaviors from a small percentage of students. School boards have continued to hire enforcer superintendents whose policies destroy entire districts within a year or so, all in the name of saving the district from its teachers. What's shocking is not just how widespread this is, but how many parents don't realize this is happening in their own district. But honestly, how would parents even know? Admin paint a pretty picture of everything going so well. Meanwhile, teachers are quitting at such high rates that we're losing anyone who is willing or able to tell our story. It's for this reason I'm telling our story. Parents need to know what has happened and how it has happened. I can promise you this is not a book report in any way. It's also not a perfect roadmap to change, with absolute solutions to all of our problems. Rather, in explaining to parents what's gone wrong, I'm hoping parents can join us and try to find a way to change this seemingly impossible situation. Having said that, welcome to the struggle. Glad to have you along. Now, a couple of things to acknowledge before we hop into the chapters. Yes, I'm reading from a script because if I don't, I'll go off on 1,000 tangents. Trust me, you don't want this. Also, a quick tip that you can listen to this like an audiobook if you want. You'll miss the pictures, but the message is still there. Now, an important message to any parents watching this who have had kids with behavior issues, big or small, at school or home. We teachers are not against you, and I promise this video is not meant to demonize you. There are so many fantastic parents out there who just simply have a kid that is more difficult to raise. These are parents who at home have structure, rules, routines, discipline, parents who love their kids to death and would do anything for them. These parents are not in denial of what is going on at school, but are often shocked at how much their kids' behaviors have skyrocketed at school. These parents get phone call after phone call from the school about behavior, and every day they talk to their kid. But it's like as soon as their kid is at school, it's like a free-for-all. Their kid is no angel at home, but they don't understand, rightfully, how it's getting so out of control at school. To these parents, I swear on my teacher's license that we teachers feel for you, as we are in the same impossible situation, and I hope this video will explain how few options we have so you can join our call for change, as opposed to the district just blaming us for everything. A note on terminology. I'm using the term district admin loosely. I don't just mean the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and assistant to the assistant superintendent, but also their entourage of district cronies, puppets, henchmen, and underlings that continue to drink the cult Kool-Aid even when they themselves are being hurt by district policy. Now, though I'm having fun with the pictures, it's important to note that not all district admin are like James Bond villains. There are many admin who truly stick up for their staff and students, but also fight back against hurtful policies. For those of you who do the right thing, please know this video is not about you. But this isn't the case of a few bad eggs in a few districts. I wouldn't have made this video if this was only for a few districts. This is spreading everywhere, and I want to challenge many parents and even teachers who might say, Mr. B, I feel for these other districts, but I don't think this applies to my kid's school. To which I ask, how do you know that? Really think about how much you actually know about what is happening in your school district, because there are endless teachers and ex-teachers who thought their district was just fine. Then things fell apart. A theme throughout this video is how hard it is for parents and even teachers to really get to the truth about what is happening. There's no Scooby-Doo mystery to be solved by looking for smoking gun statements in a random superintendent speech or district update. The truth hits staff members like a ton of bricks, behind closed doors, when we're at our most vulnerable, desperately trying to get help for a student, only to watch admin blame you right off the issue completely while smiling in your face and telling you they're there to help you. In these moments, staff realize that admin not only don't care about you, but will throw you under the bus and blame you for everything, knowing that you have no way of fighting back or repeating this to parents. These aren't one-time events, but rather countless episodes that can happen even in the wealthiest of suburbs, where no one would ever think that this could happen in Pleasantville. This is true for public, private, and charter schools alike. We all have a responsibility to make sure our teachers can actually teach and students can actually learn. I hope this video will help parents fight for us, because the things stressing out your kid's teacher are affecting your kid just as much. Having said this, let's review chapter titles before diving in. I tried to give them epic sounding names to be more memorable. Chapter 1, From Schools to Test Score Factories, the never-ending pursuit of test scores. Chapter 2, Plucking a bird's feathers, then blaming it for not flying, the impossible challenge for staff to deal with extreme behavior issues. Chapter 3, The Misuse of Social Justice and the Great Divide. Chapter 4, The Superintendent, the School Board, and the Unheard Voices and Stories. Chapter 5, College Education Programs and the Normalization of the Usual. Chapter 6, The Nightmare Parent Who is Created by This Education System. Chapter 7, Planting Seeds of Change, the long-term struggle for the heart of education. And with that, let's get started.